We're all stunned by the events unfolding on the Monday Night Football field in the game between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. We're not replaying the moment here, but 24-year-old Damar Hamlin collapsing in cardiac arrest after a hit, critically injured, surrounded by his teammates who were staggered by the developments. Fans from both teams gathering, by the way, outside the hospital where doctors worked desperately to save the young player's life.
This was just really stunning for people at home and obviously people there as well. We have ESPN NFL analyst Marcus Spears with us. Let's start with you, Dr. Jen. He was administered CPR as the medics rushed the field, and he was also given oxygen and then was rushed away by an ambulance after that. Can you talk about the critical response time and also how that can significantly increase survival rates?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important because in this stage of what's happened, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot we don't know. What we do know is, as you said, CPR was administered on the field. That is only done in the setting of someone who's suffered a cardiac arrest and has no heartbeat. We don't know whether the hit was related to that cardiac arrest, whether this was a primary cardiac event or secondary to something else. It could be vascular, it could be an artery, could be a brain injury. We don't know. We don't know that this couldn't have happened just sitting on the bench. So I think that's very, very important to say what's known and what's not known. When you talk about response times, that is so important when you're talking about an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. The standard is to initiate bystander CPR, hands only. You do not need to do mouth-to-mouth, and to get an AED, an automatic defibrillator, which luckily there was on the sidelines. We don't have confirmation whether or not that was used, but to defibrillate if the machine reads and says to you, shockable rhythm, you can administer a shock. That has been shown clearly to increase survival the faster that occurs, because when you're talking about cardiac arrest, the more time without oxygen, the more that damages the heart muscle and the more that damages the brain.
And I think it was in that moment that we all feared the worst when we saw them administering CPR. Mark is here with us. Millions of people across the country watched this happen. His teammates crying on the field. It's very difficult to even put it into words how many of us felt after seeing that. How do we even begin to process what happened?
I think last night was a sobering reality. It's a reality for us today that those things that we never think about are absolutely a reality every time we take that field. So I just want people to think about him. I also want people to think about his family and how this affects them long term. We're praying that we get great news and he pulls through this. But there is still going to be a sobering reality and an effect to Damar Hamlin's family that they're going to have to move forward with, and him with his career and all of the things that he will have to deal with coming forward, praying that we get that great news. And one thing, last, DeMarco, that I want to mention is that this kid does a phenomenal work in the community. He is a guy that has stood in his community to try to rebuild, to reassert himself with the platform that he has been given. His foundation, after this situation transpired, is up towards $3 million in donations. So he's doing good work beyond being a football player. And I think it's very important that we think about the human that's going through this situation as opposed to just a football player that played for the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, most certainly. You said it right. Our prayers and our thoughts are with his family right now.
And you guys, I want to follow up on one thing that Marcus just alluded to when he talked about the family of his teammates. You saw them do something that was instinctive. It was out of respect for him when they built that human wall of privacy around him while CPR was being administered. It's why at this network and ESPN, we're not showing replays of that footage. It's out of respect for that patient at that time, because that's what he was, as well as a teammate and a brother of those other players. In the hospital, as I've participated in a lot of CPRs, a lot of resuscitation codes in a hospital, out of a hospital, the first thing we do in a hospital is pull the curtain for privacy of that patient. And you saw those players instinctively do the same thing, and it's the same reason why we're not showing that footage.
And not just privacy, but respect.
That's right.
And just some final thoughts from Marcus here. Marcus, we all know that it's a game. We watch it like it's a game, but things can take a turn for the worse in a split second. You know that. You've been a player. You've seen and watched these games over the years. Can you talk about sort of the pushback that some people are getting because they wanted the game? Some people wanted the game to continue.
Yeah, DeMarco, I think it's a very important question because we've been conditioned and so used to the resume. We see players, this same field, Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins had a concussion and hit his head, banged his head on the ground, and there were carts pulled out and teammates were concerned. And once he regained consciousness and got up off the field, the game resumed and it continued. And I think for a lot of people, it was just business as usual. And that's a part of the game as players that we realize that we are also sometimes not looked at in this regard as being human. You know, you hear the word superhuman or he's a superhero, he's doing phenomenal things, and we love to celebrate these players. And I think it should make everybody step back and take perspective not only of the risk that these players take, but before you speak to your anger about a game or your fantasy points or winning your league or your team, and before you go out and have a reaction to players wanting contracts and how it's at an impasse because of that, I think we need to take a step back and realize that this game is played by humans and humans that will one day be gone from this earth. So let's respect that part of it. And I think at that time, people just got caught up in business as usual in the NFL and in football, and this was not the time for it. And I'm glad it actually made us take a pause and think about the human Damar Hamlin and the families and the people that were affected by this. Also, those players on that field that spend time with him day in and day out.
All right, well said. ESPN NFL analyst Marcus Spears. Marcus, thank you.
Thanks to both Marcus and Dr. Jen for that.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.